Hey everyone, this is Kai, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about my coming out story and also some coming out tips. And I suppose that on a genderqueer channel, the coming out that I'm supposed to be speaking about is gender stuff. And I think that the most difficult endeavor for me in coming out was not, I mean, it's been difficult coming out to other people, but it was really hard coming out to myself. And I had and still kind of have like a lot of feelings that I have to reconcile about my gender identity. And it was really complicated because I guess like for a long time I fought to kind of expand the definition of woman so that I could fit into that definition. And then one day I was doing something, it could have been anything, right? I could have been taking a shit or washing dishes or like petting my cat. I have no idea. And I asked myself, are you possible? I think that happened in my last video. Are you possibly trans? Could you be trans or genderqueer? And it was like somebody had came up behind me and fucking pushed me off the side of a mountain. And my mind began to reel with the possibility that maybe all of this expanding that I was attempting to do with the definition of woman had more to do with the fact that I didn't fit that definition and I didn't really fit into, you know, like being female. And that was really scary for me. And so immediately my mind went to, well, if you don't fit into female, then you must be male. And even though I've known like many non-binary people and have been active in the trans and genderqueer community and have a lot of those relationships, for some reason, I right away wanted to put myself in a box. Like it was either the box checked F or the box checked M. And neither one of those boxes felt right. And so in my head, for weeks, I had two attorneys, and each attorney was amassing and presenting evidence as to why I was either male or not male, or why I was either female or not female. And like day in and day out, they just argued with each other. And it was terrible, you guys. Just terrible. I would be like at the movies, working on homework, having conversations, and I would be like there physically, but mentally just totally checked out because this was the only thing that I could focus on. And eventually I reconciled and came out to myself as a person that doesn't fit into a gender binary. And that was probably one of the more liberating things, like giving myself the permission to be male, to be female, to be other, to be none, to be all of the above at any point in time. And I think that as far as my coming out story goes, that was the most important thing. When it comes to coming out to like the general public or coming out to family or coming out to friends, there seems to be this thing with people, and I experience this myself too, right? I just explained, where they want you to either be male or female. And so having to explain that you're like this other thing that people are not familiar with is kind of difficult, and it blows their mind. And it's almost as if I'm like having to reconceptualize for them or rearrange their idea of gender. Slowly but surely I came out to the people that were really close to me, my partner, my parents, close friends. I sat down, I had conversations with them, and I let them know that I was struggling, and I let them know what was going through my mind. And people were receptive, and the ones that weren't receptive or the ones that were insensitive, I actually ended up just cutting them out of my life. Because at a time when my identity was and still is very fragile, I didn't want anybody who was not affirming fucking with it, right? And so those people that weren't loving and receptive, or who didn't have the capability to be sensitive, I removed those people, unless they were relationships of necessity, which so far I haven't had. I'm really sorry, my phone keeps going off. I haven't had any relationships of necessity. I'm just gonna put my phone in my crotch, and then maybe we won't hear it. So something that like came up a lot for me is that there were people close to me in my life who, when I told them I didn't feel like I fit into a binary and that I wanted to take hormones to masculinize my body, a lot of them were like, but you're so feminine, or you're so beautiful, and blah blah blah. And that was like something that they couldn't reconcile, like this like visual aesthetic, and not really like understanding why I wasn't and have not been okay. And sometimes I found myself wanting to explain or present evidence to those people, but what it comes down to is it's my fucking identity and I don't have to prove it to you. And so at first I was giving people evidence like, well, I've always felt this way because, and and then I just stopped. And I said, look, this is who I am, take it or leave it. I continue to be judicial about the spaces that I come out in, because my first concern is safety. But for the most part, I am out everywhere possible except for a few places. And as far as tips on coming out, the number one tip is to find allies who will recognize, affirm, and validate your identity. Because it is really tough when you are under fire and you don't have a space that says, yes, this is who you are, and yes, it is okay. Especially when that identity is like so young and fragile, it can be really confusing, or at least I know it was really confusing for me. I really needed people to like come together. And I know this, like I said this, I told you guys this story in abstractions, and that's just because for the most part I don't really think that the details were as important as the actual experiences. So I guess as far as details, I came out to people one by one in my life. I chose, the first people I chose were people who I knew would rally behind me so that I felt love and support, and so that I had some sort of like power behind me when I came out in other spaces that may be more hostile. And also that I found myself like doing a lot of explaining for those people who are really stuck on, you know, binary terms. So that's my coming out story. I hope that somebody got something out of all that, and I will see you next week.